Today and Across the Fence, we're getting all dressed up for two new exhibitions at UVM's Fleming Museum. We'll go fashion first with a look at 19th century style and culture, and later we head home to learn about a new student-curated exhibition. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. The Victorian age is always in fashion. Whether you're a royal watcher or a fan of historical costume dramas, the elegance and extravagance of the Victorian age remains endlessly fascinating. This fall, UVM's Fleming Museum is showcasing the impossible ideal, Victorian fashion and femininity. The exhibition displays corsets, hoop skirts, and bustles. It also puts in context who wore these clothes, why, and what it meant to be a woman then, and the Victorian age's impact on women today. Joining me for a behind-the-scenes look, a sneak peek at this latest exhibit at the Fleming Museum, is curator Andrea Rosen. It's great to be back here with you.
Thanks for being here.
Now, although we're shooting this before the exhibition opens, it's still very impressive. Tell me about this show and how it all came together.
So the Fleming has an amazing collection of fashion, particularly 19th century. So it doesn't get shown often because it's difficult to put together, but this came out of an intern's project. She was excited about researching that collection, and I said, why not turn it into a show?
And so all these dresses belong to real people.
Yes, yes. Many of them Vermonters who gave their family heirloom dresses to the Fleming collection.
So give us some historical context. What's the time span of the Victorian age?
So we define the Victorian era by the reign of Queen Victoria of Britain. So she reigned from 1837 to 1901 until Elizabeth II, the longest reign in British history. And it's also a defining era in terms of the development of the Industrial Revolution and consumer culture, magazines, mass print, and that had a big impact on fashion and women's lives.
And so one of the dresses here has a direct connection to UVM.
Yes. A blue dress in our entrance was worn by a woman who graduated from UVM in 1878. It was worn for her graduation from UVM. And UVM started admitting women in 1871. So she was in the 4th graduating class, co-ed graduating class, was a member of Women's Academic Honor Society. So this is a time also when educational opportunities for women are expanding, and the women's magazines that a lot of women are turning to for fashion advice are also advocating for more opportunities for women to be educated.
Give me some examples in this dress, what you're talking about as far as how the fashion changed.
In that blue dress, so that is really, indicative of that late 70s era when silhouettes become more slim. You'll see a lot of dresses in the show that have that big, wide hoop skirt from the 1860s. This is sort of more then bustles develop, that big rear mound, and this is a time when that silhouette becomes slimmer, and instead of like a two-piece dress, you see one long piece of fabric going all the way down.
And so the title of the exhibition is The Impossible Ideal. What's impossible here and what's ideal?
Right, so we also think in the Victorian era of this cult of true womanhood. A woman is meant to stay at home with the kids, manage a household expertly. All these expectations are put on her and all these limitations of what she can't do, which, a woman shouldn't work. A woman should be this bastion of moral purity in the family. And of course we know that that's unrealistic. And we also know that, we think of this era, we think of mostly wealthy white women, and that's a lot of what's represented in this show in terms of who these belong to, but we know that American women came in all classes, all races, many had to work, so we try to represent that in the show in an introductory section with photos of American women of diverse backgrounds.
And we're going to take a look at some of these amazing dresses in a minute, but I also want to ask about the photos and illustrations in this show and what role they play.
So I mentioned those photos that show more diverse women of many backgrounds, but you'll also see throughout the show these hand-colored engravings that were the fashion plates that came in these women's magazines. So this is what women are looking to get a sense of what the latest fashions are. Many of them are copied from French or British plates, so they're getting their sense of fashion from across the pond in Europe. And they show those changing silhouettes and those ideals that women are trying to live up to, like the narrow corseted waist.
Tiny waist.
Yes, yes. So we'll be showing some corsets and underwear, as you mentioned.
And so how did these magazines and fashion begin the debate of what you call in the show the woman question?
Yeah, so many of these women's magazines going back to early in the era are edited by women or have many contributions from women authors. So even as they're advocating that women should stay home. Many of the contributors are not. They're working women who are writers or editors. Sarah Hale was the editor of the most popular magazine of the era, Godey's Ladies Book. She was the editor for 40 years. And she was one of the fierce advocates for women's education. At the same time, she was not pro-suffrage. So there is that complex ambivalence about how far certain women want to go in terms of the quest for rights, and that debate plays out in some of the magazines.
Interesting. Well, earlier Andrea gave me a tour of the gallery to look at a few of the dresses on display and learn the stories about the women who wore them. So Andrea, tell me about this first dress that we're going to be looking at here.
So this dress was worn by a woman named Martha Wardner Lamson. She was the daughter of a Vermont state treasurer, and she married the son of a Windsor, Vermont gun factory owner. So pretty wealthy woman. She got married in 1865, and when a wealthy woman married, she brought a trousseau into her marriage, a whole collection of fine garments to wear in her married life. So this was part of her trousseau when she married in 1865. It would have at that point been worn with a big, wide crinoline hoop skirt. Right. So what we see here is that she had it altered later in the 1870s to suit the silhouette of that time, which is that bustle, that rear mound.
Was that pretty typical of women redoing their clothes as opposed to buying new?
Yes, even wealthy women. Fabric was expensive, dressmaking was expensive, so you would do your best to remake garments to suit changing silhouettes. Or, you also wore different styles of dress at different times of day. So originally she had this dress with an evening bodice, low neck, short sleeves, and it seems that when she altered the skirt to suit her expanding waistline as well as the changing styles, she also had a new bodice made for daytime wear with the extra fabric that she took from the skirt.
That's terrific, and the colors are pretty vibrant for even a dress that's old.
Yes, so we've preserved them well, and yeah, this is a beautiful, what we call a changeable silk, so woven with different color threads, so it changes color as you move it.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the next one.
All right.
So what have we here? A big ball gown.
Yeah, so this is a typical example of that 1860s worn with a big, wide, bell-shaped hoop skirt. Even maybe late 1850s. This was worn by a woman named Mary Sawyer Bellinger. She was from the Sawyer family of the Burlington area.
And you actually have a picture of her wearing this dress.
Yes, and we'll show that in the show. And it's a convertible dress. So in the picture, she's wearing it as an evening gown with that low neck, short sleeve. And then she had these convertible pieces added. So this cape that she could remove and put on for more modest day wear, and removable sleeves as well that she could just tie on right under there.
Now I notice you're wearing gloves. It's obviously very important not to touch anything in this exhibit.
Yes, exactly. We ask our visitors, as always, not to touch the artworks, and we try when we handle them to only touch them with gloves.
Right, and I love the fact that we have the photograph of her wearing this exact dress. Very special.
I discovered that partway through the process. I was so thrilled to find that in the collection.
Very exciting. All right, let's see what's next.
All right.
And now this third dress is pretty spectacular.
It is. This is one of my favorites. It's pretty gorgeous. It was worn by a woman to a reception for the Prince of Wales, Queen Victoria's son, who was visiting the U.S. in 1860. So as you can see, really elaborate material and technique in terms of that damask floral design on the skirt. And really wealthy women would travel to Paris once a year to buy her fashions. That was the height of fashion and luxury, and that's what a really wealthy woman would do to get outfitted for the year.
And once again, how would these women find out what the latest fashion is?
Again, those women's magazines provided a really crucial messaging. They copied fashions from France and Britain, so that's what women were looking towards.
So a woman who would wear this dress is sending a very definite signal.
Yes, that she is the height of fashion, height of wealth, to be able to afford this latest dress and the amazing fabric and technique and skill that went into it.
We talk about these dresses, but they're also undergarments people can see as well, and shoes, which
yeah,
is really
a lot
amazing.
of accessories. Yeah, so I mean, all the elements, some of the elements, it's sort of the tip of the iceberg of what a woman would need to put into putting her outfit together. It's a lot of material.
Exactly, which is why so many women had maids.
Yes, that's right.
Andrea, thank you so much for this tour. It's been fun.
Thank you, Judy.
The Fleming also has a new exhibit this fall, another new exhibit. It's called House to Home. On display, you'll find decorative art objects from Africa, Asia, and the Americas. The exhibition compares and contrasts how a house defines a place, while a home is built from relationships, experiences, and memories. 17 UVM students worked with museum staff to curate this exhibit. The student work was part of a UVM anthropology class, and the professor for that class was Jennifer Dickinson, who joins me now. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
How does an anthropology class come to work in a museum of art?
Well, I think it's really important to understand that the Fleming collection is actually foundationally a material culture collection. So we have actually a picture in the exhibit of Henry LeGrand Cannon, who was a major collector and contributor, and he's sitting in a room filled with objects that he collected on his travels around the world. And so this is an opportunity to showcase some of those anthropological objects and historical objects in addition to art.
And so what were some of the responsibilities that the students had to take on to curate this exhibit?
They did everything. So
Really?
they chose their objects, they researched them, they had to make drawings of them, they did the layout, they did the PR, they did everything soup to nuts so that they could get a sense of what it was truly like to work in a museum in different capacities and to organize a real exhibit.
How long did that take?
A semester. We pushed them hard. They get their first object on the very first day of class.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so the exhibition focuses on some everyday objects. Some of them will be familiar, others not so much. What objects did the students pick and why?
They picked a whole range. One of their favorites is something called a ditty box, and it's a small round box that's sitting on the mantle in the exhibit, and it's something sailors took to sea with them to take small mementos of home. And so that was an object that really captured the imagination and made them think about what is home when you are away from the structure that defines your home.
Is there something in that box?
There's not anything in this particular object, but usually there would be some mending tools and then small precious objects that would be things that would remind them of beloved ones while they were away.
Was there a favorite house-to-home object for the students?
I would say that one was one of the top ones, and then they also really enjoyed the model houses that we had. So the Fleming has a collection of different kinds of model houses and dioramas that were used as teaching tools in the early 20th century. And it's that quality, that childlike quality would really come out with that added intellectual component of exploring this small replica that was made for a specific purpose.
And so what do you think the students will take away from this experience?
I think that the students, many of them took away a real love of museum work, and some of them are pursuing museum work, as their next stage of professionalization. But I think all of them took away the experience of working very intensely in a group with a unified purpose and having to negotiate. A lot of them commented on 17 curators is a lot for an exhibit, and they had to do a museum level professional negotiation to accomplish that.
And what about some of the descriptions of the objects? How was that researched?
Well, we worked very closely with libraries to teach them techniques that maybe are not the ones that they would use in a regular term paper. You Google art sites, you look at catalogs for exhibitions, and you begin to find out small details, or you contact even other curators to find out those little pieces. So it was great for them.
Did the students have a chance to talk to any local people about some of these objects?
I don't think that any of these objects are ones that they focus on, although I think Calvin Coolidge's door latch is in the exhibit, so there is a very local Vermont component right there. What
about you? What did you learn from working with the museum and these students?
Every time I work with the museum, it is a revelation. It's such an exciting opportunity to reveal new hidden treasures in the collection and get students excited by hands-on work that brings all of their training to bear. So I always learn something from the students and something from the work that goes into collaborating on an exhibit like this.
And to think that you get to put out in front of the audience something that probably hasn't been seen by folks in years and years and years.
Yeah, we always try to choose objects that are less often shown. There's always a story.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. The two exhibits we focused on today, The Impossible Ideal and House to Home, run until December 14th. For admission, gallery hours, or to learn about other treasures of the Fleming Museum of Art, visit the website flemingmuseum.org or call 802-656-2090. Once again, our thanks to our friends here at the Fleming Museum, and thanks to you for joining us. That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.